Welcome to Gotta Ping. I'm Mei Ping, the founder of Gotta Ping. As a next-gen leadership coach, I help high-performing young executives and entrepreneurs like you to navigate complex people and problems with top-notch communication and leadership skills to create sustained success. In today's podcast, I want to talk about creativity and specifically why creativity really goes a long way. Let me ask you this. How often does an issue arise? Or maybe even issues, problems, circumstances. And if your personal and professional life is pretty much like most of us, I'm sure it happens more than what you like. And that's where creativity comes in. Creativity is a very close soft skill that will help in problem solving. We talk about problem solving a lot, and I also spoke about it a little bit in one of my earlier podcast episodes called Making Decisions. The thing about problem solving is this. It's very easy to tell someone that they need to bring you solutions. But how are they actually going to come up with solutions? Is it just a simple google.com and the magical genie in Google will answer every single one of your questions? But is it tailored to your actual circumstance, your actual issue? Probably not. And I think that is the same with a lot of training courses and training programs out there where they claim to teach you a bunch of skills, which is great. I think it's a great starting point. The thing is, I find a lot of these courses don't actually teach you creativity. There's not a lot of creative questioning allowing you to dive deep and really think clearly, which is also another part that I'm very focused on, and I spoke about it in other episodes as well. So the ability to be creative essentially is exploring options, exploring ideas on what may or may not work depending on the context of your challenge or even in your goals, right? So creative thinking is really not just about problem solving, and that has a pretty negative connotation to that. But a lot of inventors who have created a lot of awesome stuff for us to use, this handphone, computer, even a car we're driving, electricity, a fan, a refrigerator, whatever, it all started with creative thinking. And how did they get there? It's an idea that formed in the mind, and they chose to think about it more broadly, asking why and what they could do and what they would like it to be, and maybe having a bit of a visual representation of what could happen. Creative thinking is also closely tied to long-range future thinking, because essentially what you're trying to do is to possibly figure out what might happen if you choose a certain path or if you choose a certain option. And how can you tailor your option, solution to address this, like I said, right, a big challenge or a big goal that you have. So I can share a couple of examples with you on how these normally play out in the corporate world in which I was a senior director at that time. I see a lot of people, they bring problems, but they don't have solutions. So after getting frustrated for some time, I started asking myself, why is this happening? The good thing is that they can identify the problem, which is great, because if they can't, then that's a whole different story. But why aren't they coming out with solutions? And then I started having much deeper conversation, trying to understand the mindset, the perspectives, and the insights that, led to the specific conversations that I was having with certain team members. And I realized that they are very used to taking instructions. So, and I'm sure you can think about a couple of people who are like that. They are very comfortable following a specific set of policy, procedure, some sort of rule book, right? Guidebook and whatnot. So when a circumstance happens, and especially I was working a lot on designing new innovative ways to either manage financial crime or business management, and that was quite difficult, I found, for a lot of people to really visualize what they're building and think creatively about how we can make this blank sheet of report or presentation even more meaningful and effective. That doesn't come very naturally to people. So I've also seen a lot of people struggle, and it's not a matter of time, right? For some of these cases, it was a matter of weeks working on something, but what eventually came out was a copy and paste from existing either documentation or existing information that was presented even in the same form. This is something very interesting, and what is even more interesting is that I find some of these people, and I can't speak for the entire population, but for some of these people, then they start complaining, why can't they move up the corporate ladder? Why aren't they getting promoted? Why aren't they given a better performance rating? The truth is, and the hard truth is, they have not yet demonstrated that they could operate at the next level. They have yet to demonstrate they could think, function, and essentially be the next level leader that will have that big picture insights, creative thinking, and really solving problems effectively, and not just a Band-Aid approach. It is really the same if you're running a business as well. So if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have creative thinking, what will happen is that you end up dumping money to get other people to do work for you, because you have not cultivated the skills to be resourceful. Guys, there is this thing called google.com, google.com, if you have not heard of it, as well as YouTube, as well as so many of these podcasts and all this content that not just myself, where I'm now sharing a lot of like my insights on LinkedIn and Facebook, but a lot of other people are sharing very, very helpful content that you can learn to drive your business forward. But what I see is a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or creative people are just so stuck in their ways of doing things, right? And I also work with high performers a lot, and one of the patterns I see is that they think they know everything already. So there is an ego component as well. But like I always say, start with a beginner's mind. Think about how you can become more resourceful and creative. If as an entrepreneur you have a limited cash flow and you want to maybe build up your branding and marketing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go and pay someone thousands of dollars for them to build it up. But it's actually a game of the mind, I would say, a game of strategy rather than a game of taking action. Because you can take a lot of actions, but if it doesn't move you towards a goal, then that is just busy work. And at the end of the day, you feel so exhausted, but you have not actually achieved what you've set out to do. So in addition to critical thinking, clear thinking, and deep thinking, I would say be creative as well. How can you achieve the same result, but maybe with less investment, less money, less time, less effort? It's all about being open to the possibility that something can be done, maybe more efficiently or more effectively. And what are the little strategies and very practical strategies that you can apply to achieve that outcome? What I'm not saying here is that it is going to be magic, right? if you just decide on this strategy and then automatically it works in 24 hours. I'm not saying that, but it could happen. What I'm saying is it's all about trial and error. It's all about testing stuff. So until you have tested it, you know it works for you, then speak your truth, right? Then share with other people and like apply it consistently and just really watch your career as well as your business boom. So I'm a huge believer of only talking about things that I know. So these are the skills that I see are highly practical, but unfortunately, people don't pay a lot of attention to this. So in this, to get yourself future ready, creativity is a really, really massive part of it. Because we don't really know what the future looks like. Maybe we get an indicator, we get a sense, but we don't really know. So I always believe that the future is a skills-based economy, and the more of these, particularly these soft skills that you can master, the higher chance you have to actually be successful, not just in the short run, but in the long run. So this concludes my 10-part series on the top 10 soft skills that you should have. Thank you for joining me, and if you have missed out on any of the episodes from this top 10 10-day series, then please feel free to hop on over to my podcast at anchor.fm/gottaping. And if you have any insights, questions, connect with me and let me know. Till next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. If we have not yet connected, I look forward to connecting with you. You can find me on my website, www.gottaping.com, on LinkedIn, as well as Facebook. The links to my profiles are in this episode's description box. I can't wait for you to join me in the next episode of my Gottaping podcast. Till next time, bye!